Well, seeing is believing, at least for some of us, because as we know, January 6th is highly disputed about what happened on that day. But, especially if he's not going to come clean about what he did. And with all the conspiracies that this White House and this administration is constantly putting out, the best thing that we can do is have some proof for those that actually want to know the truth. So I hope that we can get that video footage. But last I checked, we're still having problems getting the rest of these Epstein files out of the Department of Justice. So I'm not really sure. It seems like the Attorney General is too busy trying to figure out if the president is tweeting her about something or truthing her or whatever you want to call it, or texting. I'm not really sure, because he's real concerned about Tish James and trying to figure out why we can't prosecute Tish James. Yet sitting in his administration, it seems clear that he has plenty of criminals amongst him, including himself, that maybe should be prosecuted, but we're not going to talk about that.
It is, I do think that this is not just about Tom Homan, but he is another person in a long line of people in this administration. And it's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I understand why you all are asking for the details, especially because the White House, from the press briefing room, Caroline Leavitt the other day said, oh, he didn't take the money. And then when Laura Ingraham asked him, he said, well, I didn't do anything criminal or illegal. But did you take the money? Because my MSNBC colleague said that there's internal documents that say you did, and it's on camera. That being said, the Department of Justice has acknowledged the letter that the House Judiciary letter. The FBI has not yet acknowledged it. This is from the letter. During the Reagan administration, E. Robert Wallach was convicted for taking payments while promising to influence contracts once he received a Justice Department appointment, despite not having landed a job at the time he pocketed the bribes. That is exactly what Mr. Homan did here. If that's what he did, why didn't the Biden Department of Justice charge him?
I have no idea. Obviously, I don't serve in the DOJ. I'm in the legislative branch. But I
Is that a question you have? Are you wondering?
No, hopefully we can get an answer to that as well. I think, just this week or last week, I talked about, if there was one disappointment I had, is the fact that, there wasn't an aggressive prosecution on the now president of the United States, because maybe he could have been sitting somewhere not bothering the rest of us if we had just kind of done our part and made sure there was prosecutions that went forward a little quicker. But as it relates to this particular thing, I think it is important for the American people to understand that when it comes to things such as conspiracy, which is laid out in this letter, it's not whether or not the underlying offense actually takes place. For instance, when you were talking about solicitation, if you're talking about solicitation and it has to do with, say, prostitution, it's not a matter of whether or not the prostitution took place. The solicitation is complete once you actually engage in the agreement. That is enough for solicitation. So I think, number one, we've already got a bit of an admission from this administration when the press secretary said he was entrapped. Well, entrapment is a defense. And so you only get to use entrapment if you've actually committed the underlying offense. It's like self-defense, right? Like self-defense, you have to admit to committing the offense, and then you can raise the defense. So
that's, you better lawyer it out for the people at home. That's why the president always got something to say about you, because you got the underlying details.
But that's the same thing with this entrapment thing that they're now saying. But when it comes down to conspiracy, the conspiracy is complete at the agreement. And so whether or not, like, you could actually carry it out doesn't matter. What matters is that you made the agreement. And now, just like we saw in Nixon, when Nixon decided, you know what, it's getting a little too hot in here, in a bipartisan way, they're about to boot me, I'm gonna just go ahead and bow out. Part of the biggest issue with Nixon was the cover-up of it. That became the bigger issue. And now that's what we see with this administration. Not only are they going out and they are doing illegal things, they are then engaging in a cover-up over these things instead of just being transparent.
And the interesting thing about that is when you look at how this all started in Western Texas, right? When apparently an informant started saying, hey, this guy, Homan, is going around and he's soliciting bribes. Or wants something in order to help people once he gets inside, Trump has a second term. That then triggers the FBI investigation, because the word on the street is Homan is in business, basically. right?
I am so happy you are breaking this down. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so once Mr. Holman is identified as being in business on the street, so in other words, this ain't coming from inside the Biden administration, right? This isn't coming from inside some, Democratic caucus room.
Correct.
This is coming from the streets of Texas about what's going on.
Not the Democratic streets.
And not the Democratic streets. That then triggers the FBI to go,
Correct.
what's going on?
Correct.
And they set up a sting.
So you're breaking down why, for sure, it's not entrapment.
That's
okay?
right.
Because what entrapment is me coercing you to do something that you had no idea you weren't trying to do or nothing. Okay? But when we're talking about getting the type of authority that you're going to need to be able to give out $50,000 in cash, that is not going to be on just, I'm trying to trap somebody.
Right.
That has to literally clear the traps. Okay? And typically, it's a matter of, this happens a lot of times with dope boys. Like, it happens all the time. This is how they work their cases. It's typically they bring somebody in who's lower level, who's trying not to go to prison, who says, I will help you to get to the people that are really at the top. And so they get this information from those people, and then they set up their investigations. They follow up. They try to figure out if there's any veracity. They obviously were able to get a lot of corroboration to the extent that someone signed off on an agent being able to sign out $50,000 in cash.
And that's a critical piece. That's a critical piece, Alicia, when you look at when the FBI finally sees that the elements of a potential crime are in place. I mean, it's not just, Simone coming to the FBI and saying, hey, Michael's doing something.
Yes.
There's got to be some corroboration
Yes.
along the way. And that's the part
Yes.
that's the trap.
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
cooperating and don't even know it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So if somebody walks up to Michael and says, hey, I got $50,000, I know you're a Republican, so Trump probably about to be elected. How about I give you this $50,000 and then you hook me up with some stuff? That's entrapment. Because Michael, I'm just minding my business and Trump ain't even my guy, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
But when it's a matter of different people and when you have multiple people that are saying, hey, this guy is out here fishing, and the bad part is that he actually could have gone forward, which would have been a whole other issue.
That's right.
Because what we see that they've done, just like we've complained for a very long time about mass incarceration, that it's about profiting in this country, right? And so now they've thrown these people into these makeshift bootleg prisons. I've had an opportunity to go down to one of the detention facilities. We know that it's a whole cluster when we look at Alligator Alcatraz. The idea that we even have one is the most inhumane violation of the Eighth Amendment, if I ever saw one before. But nevertheless, they have set these things up. There's all these contracts that are going out. When I went to El Paso, I asked them approximately how many people are working here. They told me hundreds of people. It was, I think, 700 people a day were working at this facility. So I asked how many are federal government employees. It was 25. Everybody else was on a contract. Everybody got a contract from somewhere. And I can promise you 10 out of 10 of them contracts are Trump's homies, right? And people that Holman was trying to say, yo, I'm going to hook you up. We're going to have contracts because we about to go round up all these people of color and we going to put them somewhere and y'all going to make money off of it.
They always say follow the money.
Always follow the money.